Hello everybody, my name is Cody Bray, bringing out yet another video, and in today's video, we're continuing the subclasses. So, as a quick little recap of last time with the Artificer, first place, right here at the top, I chose the Artillerist, next would be the Armorer, but this is a little bit older tier list thing, so Armorer is not actually a picture on here, and then Battlesmith and Alchemist. Battlesmith over Alchemist, they are in order of ranking, so it would be first, second, and third place, fourth place, not a tie between these two. It is third and fourth. And then next up, we'll be doing the Barbarian right here. And do remember that when I'm ranking the subclasses, I'm ranking them against each other, not against other ones. So if I put the Barbarian here, I'm not saying that it is better than these two. I'm just saying that it is better than any other ones that are behind it and worse than any of the other ones here. Because if I put, the Totem Warrior here, I'm not saying that it's worse than the Artillerist. I am just saying that it's just behind. It's just better than all the others. It's not better than the Artificer because they play two completely separate roles. So, and now as like the main thing, just as probably go over every time I do a video, these tiers right here, basically what it is saying is that don't know enough means that I have just never played and I don't really have an opinion. Although I will be giving my opinion, so I probably won't be putting don't know enough. Saying that it's trash is basically saying that it just takes away so much from the actual base class itself that you should just realistically don't pick that class, like that subclass, in my opinion. That is basically what trash is saying. Not nice is just saying that, yeah, it can work, but other subclasses of this for that class do what it is trying to do better. So you would just be better off choosing something else and then maybe choosing a feat to balance out that little area. True neutral is just saying that, yeah, it doesn't add anything or it doesn't add something like a huge substantial thing, but it also does not hinder the class in any way. Nice is saying that it adds a little bit. It could be really good in a certain campaign, but building around, if you're playing in a campaign that has a lot of alchemy related things, then the alchemist is great. But if you're not playing in an alchemy related campaign, then alchemist is a little bit down. Great is saying, yeah, this is a solid pick. It'll be good in basically every campaign. You don't need to be, building around the campaign. You don't need to try to build around this subclass. You can just throw this subclass in and you'll do pretty well. And then legendary is saying that this is basically the best subclass. If you choose this one, there's nothing wrong with it. No other class really does what it does, better in any way, and it even improves upon majority of the other classes' abilities, and it just supports the base class itself so much that that is arguably the best subclass. So that is kind of what these tiers are. So keep that in mind when I'm putting something in great. That is not saying that it is, so inferior or anything. I'm just saying, or if I put it in what is essentially the B tier in nice, I'm not saying it's a bad subclass or that, because you might come at me and say, oh, it's good because of X, Y, and Z. Yeah, but it's only good at X, Y, and Z in ABC. But you're not playing in ABC, you're playing in Q. That is what I am saying. Like, yeah, it's really good if you're in a scenario, but if you're not in that scenario, is it as good? So, but next up, we are hopping into the Barbarian. Barbarian, big boy, he do big boy thing. And of course, our main thing that we're going over is what the subclass does. So we will be looking at a fully leveled up one. I will not be going over all the little miscellaneous details that you get at every level that is not super pertaining to the actual subclass itself. That will be for the Sunday video where I go over the whole overhaul of the Barbarian in general. That's when I'll be saying, this is what level 1 stuff is. This is level 2. These are the proficiencies. These are ASI related things. That's when those are coming into play. For now, I am just going over the subclass related things. So, I guess we'll be starting off with the Path of Wild Magic, which I believe is the most recent one and is not on here, correct? Yep, Path of Wild Magic is not on here. It is the newest one. I would assume that means it came out during Tasha's Guide to Everything. So it'll just be like the same as the armor for the Artificer. It won't have its actual little image, so I just have to try to remember where I rank it to the best of my abilities. But let's get into it and see how well the Primal Path of the Wild Magic, does for the overall basis of the Barbarian. Right when you choose this class at level 3, you'll gain the 3rd level Path of Wild Magic feature. As an action, you can open your awareness to the presence of concentrated magic. Until the end of your next turn, you know the location of any spell or magic item within 60 feet of you that isn't behind total cover. When you sense a spell, you learn which school of magic it belongs to. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So you essentially get, in a sense, you get an odd version of detect magic, so that you can sense spells, and you get this right off the bat. You'll be able to use it twice, because that is your proficiency bonus. In the end, you'll be able to use it 6 times, which the fact that you can use essentially detect magic 6 times, but it's a little bit weaker almost, because it's, you know the location of the spell or magic item within 60 feet of you. It's strong, and it's kind of cool that the Barbarian gets this, but not exactly what the Barbarian is known for. So how phenomenal will this be? And Wild Surge, the magical energy rolling inside you sometimes erupts from you. When you enter your rage, roll on a wild magic table to determine the magical effect produced. If the effect requires a saving throw, the DC equals 8 plus your proficiency plus your con modifier. So, kind of a thing of the sorcerer wild magic is you got to use a wild magic table. If you roll a 1, shadow tendrils lash around you. Each creature of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or take 1d12 necrotic damage. You also gain 1d12 temporary hit points. That one is pretty strong. I mean, you just straight up get to... if you're raging right in the middle of a group of enemies, a couple of enemies take a little bit of damage, and you get a heal. Oh, now you don't heal, but you do get a little bit of extra HP over your already massive amount of HP, and then you're getting your normal resistances while raging. That's pretty powerful. There's no negative to you, especially like if it just said each creature that you can see within 30 feet of you, you never want a 1. But because you get to choose, and there's no limitation, it is just each creature of your choice, which means that if there's, you're being surrounded in a 30-foot diameter thing, which is huge, actually a pretty sizable, gap you can have. That's 3 squares of choice on either side. You can choose an infinite amount that are within this radius, or within this diameter, and they all have to try to not take damage. So it's either you get a little bit of extra damage just for doing what the core function of the class. Rolling a 2, you teleport up to 30 feet away to an unoccupied space you can see. Until your rage ends, you can use this effect on each of your turns as a bonus action. So, it doesn't say that you need to use it on each of your actions, so you don't need to teleport if you don't want to, but the fact that you can just, as a bonus action, move up to 30 feet is pretty huge. So if you don't have anything else to use your bonus action on, which you might not, depending on what type of build you're doing for your Barbarian, this can be pretty good. It's just 30 feet of extra movement, and because it's teleporting, it is not just purely walking. So if you need to get up top somewhere, you can teleport 30 feet upwards, get on top of that roof, and then hit the flying enemy because, well, I'm teleporting. It's always a strong thing to be able to do. And because this is not a one-time effect like this, it is 30 feet once you enter your rage, and 30 feet potentially on each of your turns. That's a not a permanent, but a constant teleportation ability of up to 30 feet. It's pretty strong. At level 3, an Intangible Spirit, which looks like a flumph or a pixie, your choice, appears within 5 feet of one creature of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you. At the end of the current turn, the spirit explodes, and each creature within 5 feet of it must succeed on a dex saving throw or take 1d6 force damage. Until your rage ends, you can use this effect again, summoning another spirit on each of your turns as a bonus action. So just right off the bat, you get to choose one enemy that is just going to have a a bomb next to them essentially that need to make a dex saving throw against, because your con will probably be, this would be what, 8 plus, at the current moment it would be 8 plus 2, so you'd have 10, and then con modifier of either 3, probably 3 or 4 at level 3. I don't, you probably wouldn't have two level, 2 4s or even a 5 as your con, because you'd be focusing more on strength for the damage that you'd naturally be doing. So you'd probably have 8, 2, and 3. So a DC of 13 at level 3, that isn't half bad, and it is a dex save, which a lot of creatures can make decent dex saves, and creatures can make decent con saves, but still, that is just free damage that you now get as an option to do on your bonus action. So you, right off the bat, as your bonus action, you rage, which creates a little bomb against the enemy, and then this bomb can damage enemies around it too, not just the one creature that you put it on. And as your bonus action, you can just make more bombs, which is kind of hilarious to be honest, and fairly good actually, being able to do one-time damage and one-time HP, constant, extra movement, a little bit of extra damage, and kind of crowd control in a sense, because if you have like just a herd of enemies trying to, harry you or something, you create the bomb and it just blows up, dealing force damage, which is highly unresisted. Same with necrotic, is highly unresisted damage. So they're pretty good to be able to do constantly. Not constantly, but, as a bonus action if you're not doing anything else. And then 4. Magic infuses one weapon of your choice that you are holding until your rage ends. The weapon's damage type changes to force, which means that it's highly unresisted. At level 3, you probably aren't wielding a magic weapon right off the bat. At level 3, well, this is now doing force damage, which means that you don't have to worry about like an enemy resisting, non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, because it's no longer bludgeoning damage or slicing damage or slashing damage or anything like that. It's force, highly unresisted, as I've said, and it gains the light and thrown properties with a normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60 feet, so you can just throw a giant axe and then walk over and pick it up again later. If the weapon leaves your hand, the weapon reappears in your hand at the end of the current turn. Never mind, you don't have to go pick it up. You have a hammer, a dwarven hammer of returning or something like that, where you basically just have Mjolnir, you just throw it, hit the enemy, and it comes back to you after a little bit. Yeah, that is incredible. So that you can actually now do force damage, so less resisted, especially, even later on when you're even doing magical damage, but now you're just not having any real worry about being resisted, and you have a thrown weapon of 20 feet that comes back to you. It really does improve on the range issue that the Barbarian faces as its day-to-day thing, is not being able to hit range. Well, now you can because of this. Now you can because of this. Now you kind of can because of this, because you can't technically just teleport upwards to the enemy hit and then take the fall damage, which you'll have because it's bludgeoning damage technically. And then, can see within 30 feet of you. That's not saying that it isn't upward, so you can right off the bat do a 30-foot sphere around, half sphere around you that'll hit the enemy above you. So far, all are pretty strong for how they're actually helping you out. Of course, you only get one of these per rage. 5. Whenever a creature hits you with an attack roll before your rage ends, that creature takes 1d6 force damage as magic lashes out in retribution. So you're just running up, trying to tank everything, and this is on an attack roll. It is not saying on a melee roll, it is just an attack roll. So they use a range attack and they hit you. If they use, well, it has to be an attack roll, so I don't know if that counts for, well, no, because it's a spell attack. So you might be able to get it as also increasing, also being able to do if you're hit by like Firebolt or something, that is a attack, they have to roll the die to hit you instead of a saving throw. You potentially can just deal damage, and all they did was hit you with, you resisted, and then they take a d6 of force damage, which is no saving throw, unlike this one where there is a saving throw. This one, they just take a d6 of damage because they hit you. It's pretty good. Not too much of like wild magic related things, because, there's a lot of like force damage so far, not a lot of, different nature and elemental based things. which is kind of what wild magic is thought to kind of be, but I guess this gives more the the arcana feel rather than the wild nature-ish type of feel, but it's still really strong because force damage, highly unresisted. 6. Until your rage ends, you are surrounded by multicolored protective lights. You gain a +1 bonus to AC, and while within 10 feet of you, your allies gain the same bonus. So you kind of just get like a weird paladin-like ability where, like the aura effect that the paladins get, where you'll gain an AC, which you get to use your dex and your con as AC as long as you're unarmored, which means that you can have like a AC of maybe 16, 17, and then you also will now go up to 18, which is just anytime you gain AC, it's pretty good. And then if there is an ally near you, so if you're like a barbarian and then you have you have like a fighter or a monk next to you potentially, well, they're also getting +1 AC, which means that they also will be less likely to get hit. So, less likely to get hit is always, you know what I'm gonna say, it's always kind of strong. So, Number 7. Flowers and vines temporarily grow around you until your range ends. The ground within 15 feet of you is difficult terrain for your enemies. That one kind of lowers a little bit. It's a little lackluster compared to everything else. Like instant damage and a bit more, HP for you. A little bit of protection on you. Getting a huge boost of movement speed here. Damage-related things and helping you take care of enemies at a distance. Helping enemies take care of enemies from a distance, can help take care of enemies from a distance and lets you do more damage just for doing your job of being a tank. Makes it to where you probably won't get hit as often and can protect allies better if they're close to you because you're giving them AC. And then this just makes it difficult terrain, which some classes ignore difficult terrain. Not some classes, but some enemies ignore difficult terrain. Some enemies just straight up can fly, which means that if they don't need to be on the ground, this doesn't really do too much, and it just makes it to where they move a bit slower, which does make it to where they'll get, it'd be harder for them to run away from you, so you won't have to use all of your movement speed. But if you just had this one, then even if they ran, 60 feet away, 50, 60 feet away from you, you can teleport, and then you're there. This one, you can use movement speed and then throw the weapon. This one, you can use movement speed and then put a bomb on them. So, I mean, it's good that it's difficult terrain for your enemies, so it doesn't affect you and it doesn't affect your allies, but a little lackluster. And then number 8, a bolt of light shoots from your chest. Another creature of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or take 1d6 radiant damage and be blinded until the start of your next turn. Until your rage ends, you can use this effect again on each of your turns as a bonus action. So now it's similar to this one where you kind of plant a bomb on the enemy and they have to make a saving throw or take 1d6 force damage. This one is now 1d6 radiant damage on a Constitution saving throw. And then they also can be blinded, which is, the blinded condition is just really strong, especially if they are a sight-heavy character or something. You can just blind an enemy by shooting your arc reactor blast, like your Iron Man or something. So helps with a range issue by giving you a range attack. You can basically use this if you blind them. So they take the d6 and they're blinded. If I'm not mistaken, you have an advantage on blind targets, which means that you deal a little bit of damage just squishing them up, to soften them up and squish them, and then they blinded, which means that now when you actually take your attack against them, you're at advantage. And you can do that as a bonus action on all of your turns. So that's really good. Only one of these is a little bad, but it's still actually really good, in all honesty. Next up would be Bolstering Magic, the 6th level Path of Wild Magic feature. You can harness your wild magic to bolster yourself or a companion. As an action, you can touch one creature, which can be yourself, and confer one of the following benefits of your choice to that creature. So this is not something wild like this one. You actually get to choose, which is always pretty good when you get to choose rather than forcing, just randomly you get to choose something. It's pretty cool. For 10 minutes, the creature can roll a d3, which I don't think people just normally have a d3, so let's basically just get a d6 and say that 1 and 2 are 1, 3 and 4 are 2, 5 and 6 are 3. Simple as that. Or if you're online and you're using Array, you can literally just roll a d3 through that. Whenever making an attack roll or an ability check, and add the number rolled to the d20 roll. Why they choose a d3 and not a d4, which would have just been simpler, who knows? But anytime that you basically roll a d20, well, on attack rolls and ability checks, so not saving throws, but attack rolls and an ability check, which in combat this isn't used too often, but outside of combat, the fact that there is an outside of combat utility use of this, it's pretty good. And then attack rolls getting a d3, which basically means that for 10 minutes, like you cast the bless spell on someone for 10 minutes. Yeah, I mean, an extra, anytime that you get to add even one extra number towards a d20 roll, that can make all the difference. So, getting to add a 1, 2, or 3, it's pretty good. And then roll a d3, the creature regains one expended spell slot, the level of which equals the number rolled or lower the creature's choice. Once the creature receives the benefit, that creature can't receive it until a long rest. So you basically are a wizard, you're a spellcaster's best friend once a day, because you can just walk up and just give them a spell slot back. So, I mean, that is arguably one of the best things that anybody can do, is regain a spell slot. And this is just an ability that you can use. I mean, they only get one a day, but they're still getting, even just a level 1 spell slot means that they can cast whatever level 1 spell again. Or they get a level 3 spell slot and can cast Fireball again. I mean, whatever spells they took, you're giving them the ability to do it again. So, or they don't have to worry quite as much. It'll be like, oh man, I can't, I don't want to use my 3rd level spell, because what if I need to use this 3rd level spell later on? If I want to use this 3rd level spell outside of combat, but then what if we get into combat, so I want to use this 3rd level spell? Well, now they don't, well, I mean, 3rd level spell might be really pushing it, but like saying a 1st level spell, because odds of you rolling a 3 are, only a 33% chance, but getting a 2 is technically a 66 because you can get the number rolled or lower. So if you roll a 3 or a 2, you get a 2 level spell slot back, and then you can always get a 1st level spell slot back. So they don't have to quite worry as much of being like, oh, should I use my last 1st level spell slot right now when it could be used later? It can be like, no, you can use it now, and then I'll give you it back. That's just great. And you can do this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So at max, you'll be able to use this 6 times, which means that you can give 6 different allies, 6 different spellcasters in one day a spell slot back. Or you can give, 6 different allies, a D3, you can cast Bless, 6 times essentially. And this is for 10 minutes instead of 1 minute. It's pretty strong, guys. Next up, you'll have, level 10. You get Unstable Backlash. When you are imperiled during your rage, the magic within you can lash out immediately after you take damage or fail a saving throw while raging. You can use your reaction to roll on the Wild Magic table and immediately produce the effect rolled. This effect replaces your current Wild Magic effect. So you can basically just get hit, and then there is a chance that, you'll just be able to, if you want, this is not a force thing. So it's not like when you get hit, you have to do this. But you can just re-roll on the Wild Magic table. So if you got something that isn't quite as useful, like maybe you don't need to be, if you don't need to be using stuff at a range, you don't need to be throwing your weapon or using force damage, you want to re-roll and try to get potentially a 1 to cause the AoE damage and gain the temporary hit points, or to get the ability to teleport out of there so you're not harried by so many enemies. This gives you a chance to re-roll and get a different effect, which is produced and immediately produce the effect, which means that you can immediately teleport, immediately use the tendrils, immediately plant the bomb on the enemy with a bunch of enemies near you, immediately shoot a laser out of your chest. So it does actually give you a neat little thing that you can use as your reaction. So if you're being outnumbered, or if you need to get somewhere or do something else from what you're currently doing, you can just get a different one just because you got hit. And this also does not have a limit. It is just your reaction, which means that every time you are hit, you can just, as your reaction, if you still have one, you can just change out your wild magic and get a different effect, which potentially means that you can roll a 1 a couple of times in a row and just keep regaining a d12 of temporary hit points. So, pretty strong. And at level 14, whenever you roll in the wild magic table, you can roll the die twice and choose which of the two effects you unleash. If you roll the same number twice, same number on both dice, you can ignore the number and choose any effect on the table. So this is a similar thing that the wild magic sorcerer gets, if I'm not mistaken, to where you can just re-roll. So if you got an effect you don't want right now, like if there's no enemies near you and you don't really need the d12 of temporary hit points, but you're really hoping that you can have either the teleport or one of the attack at a distance abilities, the bomb fairy or the laser from your chest, you can re-roll, and if the odds are not in your favor and you roll the same number twice, well then you just get to choose whichever effect you want to happen. So it continues really adding to what the class is all about. It's not bad. It doesn't like add the most things, like as a 14th level ability. You know, is this really this is the 14th level ability? Is that you get to roll it twice? Like, could they have done something else? Yes. Could they have done it worse? Yes. It's like a middle of the road. It's not something that, like, if you never get to 14th level, you're not like, well, shoot, I'm not getting to 14th level, then, shoot, I'm missing out on something really strong. But it's also not like, I got to 14th level and this is what I'm getting. It's, you know, a so-so ability. It grants a decent little benefit. So all in all, like, the main benefit is this, like the fact that you get like a wild surge ability. That's just really strong, and they're all pretty good and kind of help out the barbarian. Magic awareness, like it's cool, but I generally, until I scrolled back up and saw magic awareness, I completely forgot that it was on the class. So it kind of falls off. Like this 3rd level ability is whatever. This one's great. This 6th level ability to be able to help your allies in kind of unique ways, especially for a barbarian, pretty cool. Unstable backlash, pretty cool. Controlled surge, so-so. All in all, honestly, I'd probably put it like somewhere either between great and nice. I'll have to see where I rank the other classes, because I am ranking the other subclasses against this class, so I'll be able to tell you exactly where once I'm done with the other few classes. And by the other few subclasses, I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, there's a lot of different paths you can choose. So, this might be a video broken into 2, just because unlike the Artificer, where there's only 4 subclasses to go over, I gotta go over 7, I believe, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, this video might be broken into 2, or this will just be a very long video depending on how far I get into this. So, let's just continue on with the Ancestral Guardian, the path of the Ancestral Guardian. Right out the bat, what you get is, starting when you choose this path at 3rd level, Spectral Warriors appear when you enter your rage. While you're raging, the first creature you hit with an attack on your turn becomes the target of your warriors, which hinder its attacks. Until the start of your next turn, the target has disadvantage on any attack roll that isn't against you, and when the target hits a creature other than you with an attack, that creature has resistance to the damage dealt by the attacker. The effect on the target ends early if your rage ends. So this basically just is saying, you know, this is another one of those taunt-like abilities where it's, I attack you, you have to attack me now, or else you're not going to do as well, because A, you'll have a harder time hitting at disadvantage, and B, even if you hit them, they're not going to take as much damage because they have a resistance because of me. So, being the fact that you want people to attack you and to kind of focus on you more, if you can single out an enemy to attack you more than any others, it really does put your tank job and your protector job pretty high up there. And the fact that this is supposed to be like a protecting ability right here, that does its job perfectly. And then next up will be at 6th level, Spirit Shield. Beginning at 6th level, the Guardian Spirits that aid you can provide supernatural protection to those you defend. If you are raging and another creature you can see within 30 feet of you takes damage, you can use your reaction to reduce that damage by 2d6. When you reach a certain levels in the class, it gains more, so at 10th level you get 3d6, and 14th level you get 4d6. So, basically now you can reduce damage if they they are your target, and they don't attack you, then they do less damage because the enemy is your ally is resistant. And then this is even if they are not your targeted person, they can just help protect your allies, which means that if you're close enough to your squishier teammates, like your wizard, your sorcerer, your cleric or something, you can just reduce the damage by 2d6 and later on 3 and 4d6. Which just being able to take away little chunks of damage as something as from a distance is like the strongest part. It's not that you're reducing the damage yourself. It is 30 feet of you. You can just lower the amount of damage they take. So continuing on the fact that this is supposed to be a Guardian class, and this is really kind of supporting a lot of stuff that is related to protecting, which is a decent part of what a tank is supposed to do, is take a lot of damage and protect his allies. So if you can just start protecting your allies by reducing damage instead of just taking all the blows, that's pretty good, I gotta say. At 10th level, you get Consult the Spirits. At 10th level, you gain the ability to consult with your ancestral spirits. When you do so, you cast the Augury or Clairvoyance spell without using a spell slot or material components. Rather than creating a spherical sensor, the use of Clairvoyance invisibly summons one of your ancestral spirits to the chosen location. Wisdom is your spellcasting ability for these spells. After you cast either spell in this way, you can't use this feature again until you finish a short or long rest. I mean, for 10th level spell, you gotta use Augury or Clairvoyance, and you can use this, once on each of them, and you can use them after a short rest. The fact that Wisdom is your spellcasting ability, like if they had chosen Constitution, it would have been a lot better, just because Con is like one of your higher scores, and you usually like the focus for Barbarians is Strength, Constitution, Dex. Wisdom usually is not a top 3, so having as a 4th pick option as your spellcasting modifier, it really lowers, because that's probably only going to be like a +1 or maybe a +2, unless you're playing a wise barbarian, which you can. There's nothing against it. You just probably wouldn't be able. You might be lacking in other aspects of the actual barbarian class itself. So this kind of takes away, if you want to be a wisdom oriented barbarian, this might take away from other things related to the barbarian. So level 10 ability kind of takes away, but also gives. It depends. And then at 14th level, your ancestral spirits grow powerful enough to retaliate. When you use your spirit shield to reduce the damage of an attack, the attacker takes an amount of force damage equal to the damage that your spirit shield prevents. So that means that at 14th level, you're rolling 4d6, which means that you'll be rolling, I think, on average 12 damage or so. So you basically go, cool, I've reduced the damage by 16, which means that now your wizard didn't take 16 extra damage, and he also, whoever attacked him, is now also taking 16 force damage. I keep going on about force damage, guys. Yeah, it's pretty strong. So you can just straight up damage an enemy because they try to attack your teammate. So you protect your teammate and damage the enemy with your reaction. Usually that's like a one or the other style thing. So as a 14th level ability, that is certainly one of the better ones you can choose. Like, that's one of the better ones that you can get, is being able to protect and attack. So I gotta say, as a 14th level ability, your capstone, which you don't always see, that is something that you can be excited for. 10th level, not really good, but you get it for free once, so it's like, yeah, I guess if I remember to use it, that's pretty good. Spirit Shield, as that's like a big component, especially down here, being able to protect your allies and reduce damage, pretty good. Imposing disadvantage on enemies if they don't attack you, and resistant if they don't attack you. All in all, the Ancestral Guardian class, for what it's trying to do of being like the main protector style class, as that is really what it is here for is to say, hey, if you're going to be attacking, you better be attacking me, which will draw damage away from your teammates, or if you're attacking my teammates, you're not going to do as well, so you might as well attack me. All in all, that does exactly what a barbarian and a tank should be doing, is taking away enemy damage on your allies, whether that's taking it directly onto you or protecting your allies in some other way. The only thing is that the 10th level ability kinda lackluster, but it doesn't hinder the class too much unless you're trying to play a wise barbarian. Then you might be taking away from like your dex or your con, which would lower your AC a little bit. Because if you choose to have a +3 to wisdom and a +1 to dex as a result at lower levels, then you're not getting, you're getting like a 15 AC, and it's like, well, you could be doing this a little bit better. But all in all, you're not losing because of this. So definitely a pretty good path to choose if you want to be playing a protector. Next up is Path of the Beast, which is also not on here. That's alright. At 3rd level, you gain Form of the Beast. When you enter your rage, you can transform, revealing the bestial power within you. Until the rage ends, you manifest a natural weapon. It counts as a simple melee weapon for you, and you add your strength modifier to the attack and damage rolls when you attack with it. So, if you want to be if you want to just be if you don't want to carry around a weapon, or maybe you're playing in an area where maybe you get your weapons taken away from time to time or something, this actually does kind of help you there. It's actually pretty cool. And getting to use your strength as the modifier, I mean, that makes sense that it would be strength, being that you're the barbarian. And you can choose the weapons form each time you rage. If you choose Bite, your mouth transforms into a bestial muzzle or great mandibles, your choice. It deals 1d8 piercing damage on a hit. Once on each of your turns when you damage a creature with this bite, you regain a number of hit points equal to your proficiency bonus, provided that you have less than half your hit points when you hit. So, is that pretty good? Kind of, because right off the bat, like, you're going to gain 2 hit points per turn, and at max you gain 6 hit points per turn. By the time you get regaining 6, you're in like the hundreds of HP. Like, you could be up to like 200 HP, and that isn't a lot to heal, really. It's alright, but then like the real kind of negative is the fact that you have to be less than half HP when you hit, which barbarians getting down to less than half HP, not too often. I guess like if you get hit a whole bunch and then you rage after you've already been hit a whole bunch, you can do it, but why were you not already raging when the battle started? It's a so-so ability. I mean, a D8 is kind of strong, but the extra little ability that it gives, if you choose claws, each of your hands transforms into a claw, which you can use as a weapon if it's empty, which means that you cannot be having your weapon in hand. So if you're using a two-handed weapon, you can't use the claws because, well, you're already carrying a weapon. It deals 1d6 slashing damage on a hit. Once on each of your turns, when you attack with a claw using the attack action, you can make one additional claw attack as part of the same action. So this is just giving you an early. This just gives you an early form of additional extra attack, as long as you made the attack action with the claw attack. So if you're using a one-handed weapon and you swung with the sword, you don't get the additional attack because it has to have been made with with the claw attack action, which, once again, a lot of the time you want to be using a two-handed weapon, getting like that D12 real big boy weapon to hit really hard. So claws wouldn't be too good. If you really want to be doing unarmed stuff, just play a monk. And then third, you can grow a tail. You grow a lashing spiny tail, which deals 1d8 piercing damage on a hit, and has the reach property. If a creature you can see within 10 feet of you hits you with an attack roll, you can use your reaction to swipe your tail and roll a d8, applying a bonus to your AC equal to the number rolled, potentially causing the attack to miss you. That is by far the best one, and realistically the only one that you're going to be choosing from like most of the time, because then You get a D8 reach weapon, which means that you can have your like your war axe, your battle axe, your two-handed weapon that deals 1d10, 1d12 to be able to do stuff up close, and then you can hit people from a distance if they're a little bit too far for you. So that adds like an extra little bit of an ability to hit enemies who are farther away, which is sometimes a problem for barbarians. And then you also can protect yourself even more by basically getting like the monk ability of uh, deflect missile, or getting any other ability that would the bard's cutting word ability to just lower it. It is only for yourself, but that makes sense. So tail is realistically, I would say tail is the only one that you choose, because if you want to do, you can do claws, but then you can't have a weapon in your hand really. And if you want to do unarmed related things, being a monk is better. Bite, it's good because it's a D8, but then its extra ability is once on each of your turn. It is only your proficiency bonus. Like maybe if it was your proficiency bonus plus something else, like proficiency plus your con modifier, proficiency plus plus your level or something, so that later on, like you're healing 26 HP once per round, once per turn, which yeah, that's pretty strong, but at the same time, that's because you're at less than half HP. So getting to heal 26 HP when you're less than half HP, when you have 256 HP or something like that, then yeah, healing 26 damage when you're less than 128 HP. Yeah, I guess 26 is like a sixth of your half HP at that point. But still, you have to be at less than half HP when you hit while the bite. So only one of those is overly good. At 6th level, you get a Bestial Soul. The feral power within you increases, causing the natural weapons of your form of the beast to count as magical for the purposes of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damages. The same thing as a monk is that they're unarmed attacks. This is kind of just seeming like a lesser version of a monk, to be honest. You can also alter your form to help you adapt to your surroundings. When you finish a short or long rest, choose one of the following benefish, which lasts until you finish your next short or long rest. Climbing, you get a climb speed equal to your walk speed. You can climb difficult surfaces, including upside down on ceilings, which without needing to make an ability check. So if you know that you're going to be climbing often, then you can choose to do this one. You can take a short rest and switch to climbing. If you do jumping, when you jump, you can make a strength athletics check and extend your jump by a number of feet equal to the check's total. You can make this special check only once per turn. So if you need to be jumping kind of far, you can jump farther. And swimming is just, yeah, you gotta swim the speed equal to your walking speed, but you can breathe underwater, which is arguably the strongest one. Like, yeah, the climbing one, but to be honest, your athletics is so high that, to be honest, you probably will be succeeding every time on an athletics check to be able to climb, and sometimes the DM just doesn't even care to have your roll, like to like lower the speed or anything like that. Like this is cool that you can be upside down on a ceiling. How often will that actually come up to be overly useful? Probably not as often. To be able to jump further, yeah, that's cool. If you need to jump so far that you need to add a full d20 roll to it, like, and then swimming, you get to breathe underwater, which is unbelievably strong. Like, if this also gave you the ability to not have, any disadvantage when making attack rolls underwater, then, this would be just out, blown out of the water, literally, because then you can breathe, so no issue there. You can move normally, no issue with speed, but then you're still at disadvantage because you're making melee attacks while underwater, which means it's a little down, unfortunately. So, at level 10, you get Infectious Fury. When you hit a creature with your natural weapons while you're raging, the beast within you can curse your target with Rabid Fury. The target must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw, DC equal 8, con, proficiency, or suffer one of the following effects of your choice. The target must use its reaction to make a melee attack against another creature of your choice that you can see, and then the target takes 2d12 psychic damage, and you can use this equal to a number of your proficiency bonus, and you get it back at a long rest. Like, this is cool. You can use this reaction to make a melee attack roll against another creature of your choice that you can see. That's saying that you can make a melee attack, though, and they probably would have said it probably has to be close enough that it can hit them. So if they're, using a 5-foot weapon and the enemy is 20 feet away, it is not saying that you get to make them move over to the enemy and attack them. So it's one of those weird, like, it's phrased in a way where it's not saying that you can't make them walk over and attack, but it's also not saying that it's saying that you have to make them melee attack roll immediately. So it's debatable as to whether or not you can say, oh, you have to walk all the way over there and attack your friend, or if it's attack the guy right next to you. And then the target takes 2d12 psychic damage. Psychic damage is highly unresisted, and has 2d12. That's an average of, like, I think 12 damage, 13 damage, something like that. It's a pretty decent average there. So, a lot of damage just for you hitting them. So, this one can be good, maybe. This one is really good. So, but that is, of course, they have to make a wisdom saving throw against what would be 8 plus maybe 4 at this point, so 12, 15, or 16. By what? An 18, 19 by the end. If you're not a fully level, if you're a fully level 20 barbarian, you'd be a little bit higher in that aspect, but it'd probably be like a 16, 17 wisdom saving throw. So on minions, yeah, that'd be pretty strong. But of course, you wouldn't use this against a spellcaster, so if you're going up against spellcasters, this isn't as good to do this one. Good again for this one, but then, it's good and bad. Pluses and minuses, which as a level 10 ability, it's not bad. And then at 14th level, you get Call of the Hunt. The beast within you grows so powerful that you can spread its ferocity to others and gain resilience from them joining your hunt. When you enter your rage, you can choose a number of other willing creatures you can see within 30 feet of you equal to your constitution modifier, minimum of 1. So you'd probably have like a 4 or 5 at this point, so that's 4 or 5 allies. You gain 5 temporary hit points for each creature that accepts this feature. Until the rage ends, the chosen creatures can each use the following benefits once on each of their turns. When the creature hits a target with an attack roll and deals damage to it, the creature can roll a d6 and gain a bonus to the damage equal to the number rolled. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency, get them back at a long rest. So this is pretty cool, but when a creature hits with an attack roll is the main thing. That's kind of like the saving area, but also the fact that this is, at max, you have like a 5, a 5 con modifier, which means that you can get 5 allies, 25 temporary hit points for you. That's good. 25 can survive, help with like 1 or 2 attacks, but it could be more. And then also, the allies only get a d6 extra damage, which, yeah, extra damage is always good, but then when you're so far in the game, and all it is 1 extra d6, you're getting a max of 6 extra damage against, the adult red dragon that you're fighting, the ancient red dragon that you're fighting. Yeah, 6 extra damage probably isn't the best, but it's extra damage, I guess. All in all, I would probably put the Path of the Beast pretty low on this. There isn't a thing here. Actually, it says Battle Rager. Oh, yeah. So Battle Rager is a dwarf only, like a dwarf only one, like a dwarf only barbarian subclass. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's dwarf. The fact that it is a dwarf only puts it as trash for me. Like, it puts it at the bottom of the barrel. Like, Battle Rager, if I'm thinking of the right one, it is bottom of the barrel. You have to be a dwarf in order to get this, and then the benefits you get from it aren't even overly good. It's, let me see, I believe it's dwarf, so if I just make myself a hill dwarf real quick, then I believe I should be able to see it now. No. So, yeah, I have no clue what the issue is there. It is not here. So the fact that it's not even always there, yeah, whatever. Next up is the basic one. This is what you get. The Path of the Berserker is the detailed at the end of the class description. This is the one that you get for free. You don't need anything else as long as you're on D&D Beyond. You get this. And basically what the Path of the Berserker gets is Frenzy, which lets you go into a frenzy when you rage. If you do so for the duration of your rage, you can make a single melee weapon attack as a bonus action on each of your turns after this one. When your rage ends, you suffer 1 level of exhaustion. I hear a lot of people saying that this is really bad, that, oh man, you get an exhaustion, and then you can really rack those up really fast, and then exhaustion can kill you. If you're playing in a campaign where you're, having 3, 4, 5 battles in one setting, like in one day before you take a long rest, and you're actively choosing to frenzy every single time, knowing that you're going to become exhausted, A, you're just playing the character wrong, because you're actively hindering yourself by giving yourself exhaustion. B, you wouldn't choose this class if you're doing a campaign where there are so much, where there is that constant, so many battles that you wouldn't want to use this and suffer all the exhaustion, because you're just battle after battle after battle racking up exhaustion. You lose exhaustion when you rest, and then there's also certain things that'll get rid of your exhaustion too, like I think some spells can get rid of exhaustion. So getting to at 3rd level, use a bonus action to give yourself an extra attack, and there's all the people who are like, oh yeah, Polearm Master, just use Polearm Master to get the extra attack. Well, that's using a polearm, and that's using the opposite end of the polearm, which is a D4 damage. You want me to do 1 D4 damage when I can use my bonus action to do another D12, D10 damage? Frenzy gets a lot of hate for the fact that it gives you exhaustion, but use it maybe once, maybe twice a day if you're getting into that much combat, and make sure to take long rests, and you're good. I mean, don't use this every single battle if you're getting a bunch of battles in one day, and remember to take long rests. Remember, play your character smart. Even if they have a low intelligence, you don't have to have a low intelligence. So, yeah. At level 6, you get Mindless Rage, which means that you can't be charmed or frightened while raging. If you are charmed or frightened when you enter your rage, the effect is suspended for the duration of the rage. So you can fight, succubi, incubi, dragons, anything else that can cast spells that can charm or frighten you. You don't have to worry, because you can just rage through it. Yeah. You can just get rid of the Charmed or Frightened effect just by using the core ability of the class. Guys, that's pretty strong. Okay? That's really strong. At 10th level, you get Intimidating Presence. Beginning at 10th level, you can use your action to frighten someone with your Menacing Presence. When you do so, choose one creature that you can see within 30 feet of you. If the creature can see or hear you, it must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw. 8 proficiency Charisma this time, so might be a little bit lower, but Charisma, know that you might want to be the intimidating figure. Charisma would probably be your number 4, so this would be like a +1 or a +2, which means that you'd be getting a decent thing here. Or be frightened of you until the end of your next turn. On subsequent turns, you can use your action to extend the duration of this effect on the frightened creature until the end of your next turn. This effect ends if the creature ends its turn out of line of sight or more than 60 feet away from you. If the creature succeeds on its saving throw, you can't use this feature again for a day. So this doesn't have to be used in combat. You can just frighten someone, which means that you'll then be able to get, you can interrogate by frightening them. You can get a lot of benefits by frightening the enemy. So if you succeed on this, which a lot of the times you're being the bad cop already, so you use the intimidation that you might be trained in with your little bit of charisma modifier. Well, you don't use a full intimidation thing, but you use your charisma modifier, which might be like a 2, +2, which would then be, I believe it would be 16 total, no, 14 or 15 total, something like that at level 10, and then like a 16, maybe even 17 at max. Being able to frighten a creature, and then they don't get a save afterwards. Either they save right off the bat, or they do not get to save anymore, and then they're frightened. Frighten is a very powerful thing in and outside of combat. It is one of the best spell effects you can, or best, not spell effects, but one of the best effects you can have on a creature is frightened. So, getting to just do this, and there isn't a limit to how much you can do this day. Just if they succeed, then they aren't affected again for another day, but there might not be another day that you have to do it. So, it's good. There's definitely better things that, better level 10 ones, but it's good. It doesn't really add to the core class itself, though. And then at 14th level, when you take damage from a creature that is within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to hit it. It's good. It lets you hit. And you know what barbarians like to do? They like to hit. So, hit things. Do more damage just because they hit you. And this can be, your 2d12, 3d12 weapon. You get to swing at them. So you probably are going to do a decent bit of damage. All in all, Berserker is probably B. Because despite everything, the main thing is like, yeah, you get an extra attack as a bonus action if you're in a frenzy, which you're not always in a frenzy. The 6th level ability is probably the best part of it, because right at 6th level, like, you aren't always going to get to 14, so you aren't always going to get retaliation, but getting to just ignore the charmed and frightened conditions, really good. Intimidating presence, you might not always be able to frighten people, because if they're, immune to frightened, or just you're kind of a low charisma, so it's really easy for them to resist it, then there's not much you can do. And then the capstone of retaliation, getting to hit people if they are within 5 feet of you and hit you with melee, you get to hit them back. So you don't get to do anything to that spellcaster who hit you with a spell, because it was not a melee attack against you. Unless it's a melee spell attack, then you probably would be able to hit back, but it's good, but not good enough to be above anything else. So it can be, really good in the right campaign, but it can also be really bad in the wrong campaign. Next up, you get Storm Herald. As a Storm Herald, at 3rd level, you get Storm Aura. Starting at 3rd level, you emanate a stormy magical aura while you rage. The aura extends 10 feet from you in every direction, but not through total cover. Your aura has an effect that activates when you enter your rage, and you can activate the effect again on each of your turns as a bonus action. Choose Desert, Sea, or Tundra. Your aura's effect depends on the chosen environment, as detailed below. You can change your environment choice whenever you gain a level in this class. And then the proficiency bonus, if it's a saving throw, is 8 proficiency con. So, Desert. When this effect is activated, all of the creatures in your aura take 2 fire damage each. The damage increases when you reach certain levels in the class, increasing to 3 at 5, 4 at 10, 5 at 15, 6 at 20. This one's alright. I mean, a lot of things resist fire damage is the issue, and it's all other creatures, which means that this will also affect allies. It's like a kind of small size, so, you can probably work around it, but it's not overly strong, because at max you're doing 6 damage to an enemy. At the same time, it also might be doing 3 damage instead. Of course, you can switch that over to, to Sea or to Tundra if you're going to be fighting fire enemies or enemies who have resistance to fire. You can just switch by leveling up, but of course that means that you would have had to have known to switch, so. But there is no save for it, they just take the damage, so that's good. And then for Sea, when this effect is activated, you can choose one other creature you see in your aura. The target must make a dex saving throw. The target takes 1d6 lightning damage on a failed throw, or half as much on a successful one, which means that they will always take damage. And lightning is a bit less. It's like the middle ground for resistance. Not a lot of things resistant, but there are a decent couple of things that are resistant. It isn't as big as fire, but it's nowhere near force or psychic. And then the damage increases when you reach certain levels: 2d6 at 10, 3d6 at 15, 4d6 at 20. So, at max, you're doing, a 4d6 lightning damage as a bonus action that is with, an enemy that is within the aura, which means it's pretty good. Just as a bonus action, you just call lightning on someone. It's pretty good. Nothing bad about it, nothing overly spectacular, nothing overly bad. And then when this effect is activated, each creature of your choice in an aura gains 2 temporary hit points as icy spirits inure it to suffering. The temporary hit points increase when you reach certain levels: 3, 5, 4 at 10, 5 at 15, and 6 at 20. This is a good one early on, because gaining, like this one and Desert are good early on, because they're like, the small damage and small hit points are good early on because you don't have a lot of hit points and the enemies don't have a lot of hit points. So the extra little bits that you get are really good. And the fact that you can choose a lot of things to be able to be affected by it are good. But then later on, you'll probably want to just stick with C. Because 6 extra temporary hit points, or realistically 5 temporary hit points, because you probably aren't going to either you aren't going to reach level 20 because your campaign ends early, or B, you'll probably multi-class at some point as a barbarian. A lot of the times as you multi-class with fighter to gain action surge and second wind to heal yourself and to be able to attack more times in a turn. So late game C is probably your choice to be able to do 3d6 lightning damage. So definitely a little bit better on that area. Storm Soul, depending on which one you currently have of your things. Desert, you gain resistance to fire damage, and you don't suffer the effects of extreme heat as described in the DM's guide. Moreover, as an action, you can touch a flammable object that isn't being worn or carried by anyone else and set it on fire. This is probably the best part, is resistance to fire damage. Not a lot of the times this isn't actually always remembered, is that extreme heat and extreme cold as an effect, extreme heat there and extreme cold down here. It isn't always remembered that there is an issue when dealing with extreme heat and extreme cold. It isn't always something that's on everyone's mind. And then you can touch water to turn into a 5-foot cube of ice, which melts after a minute. The action fails if a creature is in the cube, so you couldn't even use this to freeze an enemy. So the only really spectacular thing is resistance to cold and resistance to fire. Resistance to fire especially. The resistance to lightning is a little bit down, but then you can breathe underwater and you have a swim speed of 30. Breathing underwater is one of the best things you can have, because not having to worry about any water issues, you can just go under there and there is no problem. Honestly, if you took this away and you gave it the you no longer have disadvantage when making melee underwater, that would definitely make it a bit better. But getting a swim speed of 30 feet, so you move, not normally, because you do actually move a little bit faster, because you do gain 10, but it's still actually pretty good to move fairly quick while underwater and breathe underwater. And then resistance to lightning is so-so. It probably would go fire, cold, and then lightning as the tier for these three, I would say, depending on your campaign. But C continues to be the better one, being able to breathe underwater rather than not suffer the effects of extreme heat or extreme cold and freeze a cube of water that does not have an enemy in it and ignite a flame, which I think cantrips can do. Or you can just use, I don't know, a match. So at 10th level, Shielding the Storm. At 10th level, you learn to use your Master of the Storm to protect others. Each creature of your choice has the damage resistance you gain from the Storm Soul feature while the creature's in your Storm Aura. So while they're within that 10 feet, they're getting resistance to fire, they're getting resistance to cold, they're getting resistance to lightning, whichever one you chose. So it's good. Giving resistance to allies. It is a small area, so that really is only going to affect other melee combatants that you're roaming around with if you're on the front line. Because usually you wouldn't be on the back line, because that would be drawing enemies towards your squishier players, and you don't want to do that. And at 14th level, the power of the storm you channel grows mightier, lashing out at your foes. The effect is based on the environment you chose for your storm aura. Desert. Immediately after a creature in your aura hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to force that creature to make a dex saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes fire damage equal to half your barbarian level. So they would take 7 damage of fire if they fail it. So if they succeed, it isn't halved for them or anything. So they'll take 7 fire damage if they fail on that dex saving throw, and even less if they resist fire, which is a heavily resisted one. When you hit a creature in your aura with an attack, you can use your reaction to force that creature to make a strength saving throw. Now this one is pretty good, because not a lot of things are strength saving throw oriented. So that's actually kind of good, rather than dex here. On a failed save, the creature is knocked prone as if struck by a wave. So they can hit you, you knock them prone. If that was their last attack or the only attack they had, then on your next turn, you get to beat them up because you're on the ground. So, and then Tundra. Whenever the effect of your storm aura is activated, you can choose one creature you see in the aura. That creature must succeed on a strength saving throw, or its speed is reduced to 0 until the start of your next turn, as Magical Frost covers it. I mean, that's cool. If they fail on it, then they can't move, which means that you can get up to them closer, but then that also is like, you have a 10-foot radius, so that's really only hitting like the person in front of you. If you're already attacking them, then they can't move. Really, you would probably like just go C on this one. Like, I gotta say, like, the Mindless Rage ability that you get from the Barbarian, from the Berserker, is probably good enough to put it over the Storm Herald. Mainly because for Storm Herald, in my opinion, you'd really only be choosing C the entire time to get the extra lightning damage and to be able to knock people prone, which is really good because that gives all melee combatants advantage on them if, you know, they're within melee range and you hit them with a melee attack. Like, only choosing one thing, the other two never really being chosen. You can get an extra attack with this one to do a full base attack on them. Mindless Rage is great. The 14th one where you can retaliate and just straight up hit somebody because they hit you with a melee attack. I do put it a little bit above Storm Herald. It's like a 83%, 82% situation. Like, it's just 1 point off. Like, same exact grade, just just 1 point difference realistically. Like, this can be great if you're in the right campaign. You know, if you're in an ice campaign, then choosing the fire one would be great because you can deal extra damage to ice enemies. Or if you want to resist the cold, you can choose the tundra one. If you choose like an underwater, like a ship campaign, that one's pretty good because you can breathe underwater after a bit. But, you know, certain aspects make it really good, certain aspects make it a little down. So, you know, Path of the Totem Warrior. So right off the bat, you get Spirit Seeker. Yours is a path that seeks attunement with a natural world, giving you a kinship with beasts. At 3rd level, when you adopt this path, you gain the ability to cast the Beast Sense and speak with animal spells, but only as rituals. So that's just like a cool little extra thing, is you can speak with animals and do Beast Sense. Neat little added thing there. You get at 3rd level, you also get Totem Spirit, which is the thing that you get when you're raging. This is your extra little bonus while raging. Everything is basically just saying that, like, you know, you get like you have like a special little thing that symbolizes whatever animal you chose, and then you also get like a totem animal that is related that you can like change. Like, this stuff is just for flavor text. There's nothing that's really like actually needed there. This is where everything comes in, is which one do you choose. Bear is by far the best one. While raging, you have resistance to all damage except psychic. So, fire damage halved, lightning damage halved, force damage halved. You just have to worry about psychic damage, which not a lot of things can cause psychic damage. And if you really want to be cheeky, there is a race that lets you be resistant to psychic damage. So you choose that race, and then you choose the bear totem. So while raging, you're resistant to everything. So, Eagle, while you're raging, other creatures have disadvantage on opportunity attacks against you, and you can use the dash action as a bonus action. So you get to use the dash action as a bonus action, which means that you get to run your movement speed, again, using the bonus action, which is pretty good. I mean, that means that you have to wait till next turn, because it is a bonus action to rage. So you rage, and then you have to wait till next turn to be able to use the extra little bit, and then they have disadvantage on opportunity attacks against you, so if you're trying to be like really active and run around constantly, then this one can be good. But if you're just resistant to everything, then them having disadvantage really doesn't matter because you're just not going to take damage anyways. Elk, while you're raging and aren't wearing heavy armor, your walking speed increases by 15. That's really good because a lot of the times, an enemy is too far away from you. Well, now you're 15 feet faster. So, you're 40 right here, or you gain 10. Most races is a base 30, which means that you go from 30 to 45 to 55. That's a 55 run speed animal, barbarian charging at you. That's kind of intimidating, and you probably won't be wearing heavy armor, so you don't have to worry about that. Tiger, while raging, you can add 10 feet to your long jump distance and 3 to your high jump distance. That's just whatever. While you're raging, your friends have advantage on melee attack rolls against any creature within 5 feet of you that is hostile towards you. So you gain pack tactics, which at this point, if you have a rogue on your team, or a ranger on your, like a fighter on your team, or a monk on your team, and you no longer have to be perfectly flanking, you just have to be next to them, and then they run in to help, harry the foe. They're just within 5 feet now. They don't have to be directly behind them, which means that everybody can be quote-unquote flanking now, as long as they can hit them with a melee attack. So, it's just that one makes it extremely powerful. So definitely it's like bear, elk, and wolf are the three strongest ones. Bear being the strongest, as it just gives you resistance to everything. Honestly, you can stop here and not look at anything else, and this is just like, that just already makes you better than almost every other subclass because you're resistant to all damage while raging. So at 6th level, you get Aspect of the Beast, which this does not have to be, you can choose the same animal you selected at 3rd level or a different one. So I do not have to do my Aspect of the Beast, does not have to be the bear. It can be anything. And this is just a magical benefit that you always have. This is not a, while raging you get this, like it is with the Totem Spirit. This is just a state of being for you, essentially. The bear, you have the mind of the bear. Your carrying capacity, including maximum load and maximum lift, is doubled, and you have advantage on strength checks made to push, pull, lift, or break objects. So you're just stronger in a sense, which can be really helpful if you're being the pack mule and you don't have a bag of holding to kind of relieve all the weight. You can just carry a lot of stuff, and then you don't have to be raging to gain advantage on strength checks that are related to push, pull, lifting, and breaking, which is just about every strength check for the most part, other than like climbing, which is an athletics check. So it's pretty helpful. You get the eyesight of an eagle. You can see up to 1 mile away with no difficulty, able to discern every fine details as if looking at something no more than 100 feet away from you. Additionally, dim light doesn't pose disadvantage on your wisdom perception checks. So you're now the eyes of the team. You can see you're seeing a mile away as if it's 100 feet away, which is extremely powerful. So if you have like a lot of you're trying to actually look at stuff from a distance, if you're trying to observe people, observe blank, then Eagle is certainly one of the stronger ones you can have. And then also the no longer disadvantage on perception checks in dim light, pretty good too. Also something that a lot of people forget about is that you have disadvantage, mainly because a lot of races have dark vision, so it doesn't really matter. But hey, elk, when mounted or on foot, your travel pace is doubled, as is the travel pace of up to 10 companions while they're within 60 feet of you and you're not incapacitated. So if you're on a mount whose speed is 300, it is now doubled to 600, and then all your allies who would probably be within 60 feet of you anyways are now also moving at 600 feet. So, because they're all assumably all in the same speed item that you're on. So you're all moving at 600 feet, so if you're not trying to do transport by magical means, then you have to be using a horse or traveling yourself. Elk is really strong. Tiger lets you choose to become proficient in 2 skills. So you could become a proficient in acrobatics, athletics, stealth, or survival. You get to choose 2 of them. The times when you can be skilled in more things, that's just really good in all honesty. And then wolf, you get the hunting sensibilities of a wolf. You can track other creatures while traveling at a fast pace, and you can move stealthily while traveling at a normal pace. So if you're in like a tracking oriented campaign, then this will be your go-to one. But other than that, this isn't overly good. I mean, this stealthy while traveling at a normal pace is good too. But you know, at 10th level, you gain Spirit Walker. You gain the cast the you can cast the Commune with Nature spell, but only as a ritual. When you do so, for flavor text, it is whatever your animal that you chose is from these 2. You can cast Commune with Nature, which is kind of cool. It's like like the level 10 ability isn't always like that super spectacular thing, but it always adds something. It usually doesn't take away. This just adds your ability to cast Commune with Nature, which is pretty cool. Helps with like your whole nature vibe that you have. And then Totemic Attunement. You gain magical benefit based on a totem animal of your choice. You can choose the same animal you selected previously or a different one. While you're raging, any creature within 5 feet of you that is hostile to you has disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you or another character with this feature. An enemy is immune to this effect if it can't see or hear you, or if it can't be frightened. So that's good if you have like a couple of melee people who are all harrying the same target. This is one of the better ones that you can have, but other than that, nothing huge to go with it. Eagle. While raging, you have a flying speed equal to your current walking speed. This benefit works only in short bursts. You fall if you end your turn in the air and nothing else is holding you aloft. You have a fly speed of 45 feet if you didn't choose the elk for the extra movement speed. So 40 feet, of fly speed. 40 feet of flying. This Goliath Barbarian, the 7.5 foot tall raging Goliath Barbarian flying at a guy. Yeah, that's terrifying. That's massive. A fly speed for the Barbarian. Really helps you hit the enemies in the air and at a distance. While raging, you can use a bonus action during your move to pass through the space of a large or smaller creature. That creature must succeed on a strength saving throw, DC 8 strength bonus and proficiency, or be knocked prone and take bludgeoning damage equal to 1d12. This one is just kind of cool, because then you rage, and then the next turn you can just kind of, run through an enemy. But of course, by the time you're like 14th level, a lot of the times the enemies are not gonna be, you're facing like the big boy enemies now. So you're facing, gargantuan, humongous enemies. No longer you're facing large and smaller, but if you do go up against large and smaller, you can potentially just barrel through them, and then they're knocked prone, which gives you advantage on your melee attacks against them, because, well, that's just kind of how it works. So it's good. While you're raging, if you move at least 20 feet in a straight line toward a large or smaller target, right before you make a melee weapon attack against it, you can use your bonus action to make an additional melee attack against it. So if you're constantly needing to like run between targets, as long as they say straight line, meaning that you go like this, straight line of 20, it cannot go like this, up to here, back down to here, because you had to avoid this spot right here. That's no longer a straight line of 20 feet. That's a slight curve of 20 feet, unfortunately. So it's cool, but not a lot of benefit. And then while raging, you can use your bonus action on your turn to knock a larger creature, or a large or smaller creature, prone when you hit it with a melee attack. There is no roll. You hit the enemy and they are prone. Which means that you can then, if you have any additional attacks, you can hit them more. Or if your allies are nearby, they can hit them, and it's advantage because they're knocked prone. So you're probably going to choose Wolf or Eagle for this one, being the fact that you'd like to be able to fly as a barbarian to get to the up top enemies, and Wolf because knocking enemies prone while a melee attacker, super strong. Not even going to play games. Totem Warrior is S tier. It is the best class you can have solely from Bear Totem alone. I mean, Bear Totem giving you resistance to everything. You can move faster if you choose the Elk Totem. You can help your allies have advantage while they're while meleeing an enemy. You can, move even faster while traveling. You can, have better eyesight. You can have fly speed. You can knock enemies prone because of reasons. You can cast commune with nature, speak with animals, beast sense. A lot of just fantastic things come from this class right here. So there's nothing overly bad about it. There's really nothing bad about it, to be honest. Like, nothing takes away from the class itself. It just adds in really good ways. So, and then the final one you get is Path of the Zealot. Yeah, this is a long video, so sorry about that. Just try to bear with it. Maybe watch this in a couple of servings instead of trying to watch all of it at once. Maybe watch like 2 or 3 classes, subclasses. Take your break, go watch some other videos, do other things. Come back, watch another couple, take your break, come back and watch the last few. Or watch, half and half, and then you're good, I guess. Sorry. So, at 3rd level, starting when you choose this path at 3rd level, you can channel Divine Fury into your weapon strikes. While you're raging, the first creature you hit on each of your turns with a weapon attack takes extra damage equal to 1d6 plus half your Barbarian level. The extra damage is necrotic or radiant. You choose the type when you gain this feature. So if you choose radiant damage, so that means that you deal 1d6 as the first creature you hit on each of your turns, every single turn. That is a bonus action, not, if you, on certain things, it's just, if you hit them, you get to do this once each turn. You gain one extra d6, half your Barbarian level, which means right off the bat, depending on the DM, you either round up or round down. I round up personally, so you do 1d6 plus 2. And if you're getting all the way up to like max level, that's just straight up 1d6 plus 10 damage. That is not like taking away. It's not saying, oh, as a bonus action you get to do this. This is every time. You're doing an extra minimum of 11 damage, radiant damage, or necrotic damage, which that's just pretty good. Especially early on. I mean, you're dealing 3 extra damage up to 8 extra damage, and it's radiant. So if you're facing undead, that's double damage there. If you're facing angelic beings and you chose necrotic, you're dealing extra damage because necrotic against angels and stuff. So it's pretty strong. At 3rd level, you also gain Warrior of the Gods. At 3rd level, your soul is marked for endless battle. If a spell such as Raise Dead has the sole effect of restoring you to life, but not undeath, the caster doesn't need material opponents to cast the spell on you. So that's just saving your allies' components. So if you die and your cleric comes up and is trying to cast Raise Dead or something else, and it's like, oh yeah, it costs a 500 gold diamond that is just destroyed upon using this. Well, no, it's not. They don't need it anymore. So it makes it a lot easier to revive you as such. So at 6th level, you gain Fanatical Focus. Starting at 6th level, the divine power that fuels your rage can protect you. If you fail a saving throw while you're raging, you can re-roll it, and you must use the new roll. You can use this ability only once per rage. I mean, getting a re-roll on a saving throw once per rage, yeah, but that's still just getting to straight up a re-roll something. So if you accidentally rolled a natural 1, well, now you gotta re-roll it to hopefully get something a bit better. So, you wouldn't be, if you roll like a 14 on something, like a 14 plus, whatever, you probably don't want to choose the reroll to try to get even higher. But if you're rolling really low, you get a once per rage reroll, which is just cool. It's like an added benefit, nothing taking away for the bonus of it. So, at 10th level, Zealous Presence. At 10th level, you learn to channel divine power to inspire zealotry in others. As a bonus action, you unleash a battle cry infused with divine energy. Up to 10 other creatures of your choice within 60 feet of you that can hear you gain advantage on attack rolls and save throws until the start of your next turn. Once you use this feature, you can't use it until a long rest. That is just extremely powerful. Up to 10 allies of your choice gain up in 60 feet, which is a huge size. Like a massive area that you can affect. 10 creatures in that 60 foot gain advantage on attack rolls, which means that if you're a rogue, as long as you aren't somehow getting disadvantage, you automatically are getting sneak attack. You're making it a lot easier for all your melee combatants to hit. Your wizard can then, instead of instead of using they'll have to use a spell attack roll instead of using something that would cause for a saving throw on the enemy. But still, a lot of good spells can be used as an attack roll. They now have advantage on it. And on saving throws, which means for one turn, you're making it to where your allies, and you, of course, all are getting advantage on saving throws, which will make it way easier for you guys not to get hit by that fireball or hit by that, insert strong spell here. And this is not a magical based thing, so it's not like somebody can dispel magic and stop it or counterspell and stop it. This is just an ability of your class, which means that you give your allies advantage for free. And then at 14th level, beginning at 14th level, the divine power that fuels your rage allows you to shrug off fatal blows. While raging, having 0 hit points doesn't knock you unconscious. You must still make death saving throws, and you suffer the normal effects of taking damage while at 0 hit points. However, if you would die due to failing death saving throws, you don't die until your rage ends, and you die then only if you still have 0 hit points. And there is nothing that's saying that this can't be triggered multiple times on a rage. So if you're raging, you get knocked down to 0 hit points, and you don't just die, you're still fighting. And then you die once your rage ends if you haven't been healed up. Which means that you have up to 6 turns, or you have Relentless Rage, which means, oh no, not Relentless Rage, I think it's actually a different class that gets it, but you basically have 1 minute. Oh yeah, at 15th level, your rage is so fierce that it ends early only if you fall unconscious or you choose to end it. Well, you don't fall unconscious because of this, which means that technically you're immortal. Other than if they can hit you to the point that you're below your HP, your maximum HP. So if you have 250 HP, in order to die while raging, you have to get to negative 250 HP. If you're at 15th level. Not at 14th, but at 15th level. Do I have to say it? Do I have to? That is the strongest thing. That is the strongest capstone possibly in the game, at least for the Barbarian. It is the strongest Barbarian capstone. Like, you just don't die. You are so mad that you will not die unless they fully kill you. And then you can just be healed back up while you're like this is coming through clearly, right? You're basically an immortal being once you get to this point, unless you get to negative 250 HP. Or if you get like a necrotic or a necrotic spell, like a negative damage spell, or a disintegrate spell or something that will kill you if you go below 0. I mean, I'm putting Zealot up here. Honestly, I'm putting Zealot above Totem Warrior personally, just because rather than like all the different choices and like 1 or 2 of the 5 choices being really good, this just gives you extremely strong things all the time, and it benefits allies too, not just you for combat. And there's not much more I have to say. It's just strong, alright? So all in all, Wild Magic goes right here in A at this point. Looking at these two, it would definitely go A, a little bit below Ancestral Guardian, and then Path of the Beast. It goes like down here somewhere. It's like true neutral, like low true neutral, high not nice. Like, realistically, I would not recommend choosing it. It doesn't add a whole lot to the Barbarian itself, so you'd just be smarter in picking a monk for how it's described, or choosing the there's a Blood Hunter subclass that does a similar thing. It just kind of is better. But yes, this is the ranking. And remember, I'm not saying that the Artificer Artillerist is better than these two. I'm saying that the Barbarian Zealot is better than this one. But I'm not comparing these two. I'm not comparing this guy to this guy. I'm comparing this guy to this guy, and I'm comparing this guy to this guy. So these two are not better than these two. This one is better than this one, and that's all that means. So don't yell at me and be like, oh, why are you putting the Artificer above the Barbarian? I'm not. I'm putting it above it because it's alphabetical. That's the only reason. So yeah, but there is my tier list. So if you guys did enjoy, then consider hitting the like button and commenting down below what you guys enjoyed. Also, comment down below what your personal opinion is on this tier list. I'm not just saying, oh, put down in the comment, oh, your tier list sucks. I'm saying, how would you have ranked these? Because I'm curious. Would you guys have put Totem Warrior above Zealot? Would you have put, Storm Herald up to A tier? Would you have put Battle Rager higher, Beast higher? Comment down below what you guys would have, like what your personal ranking is of the Barbarian. If you guys didn't like the video, then go ahead and dislike it and tell me down below what you guys didn't like so I can improve upon it and make the videos better for you guys. I will, so if you're gonna comment down, oh, the video was too long, don't worry. I am looking here. Cleric will be separated into multiple videos. Fighter will be more videos. Monk will be 2 videos. Anything that is like probably the Bard, Sorcerer, Druid, and Warlock will probably be, and the Ranger will be the only ones that are like left to be in one video. Everything else, mainly because Cleric has a ton, Fighter has a bunch, Monk has a good bit, Paladin has a good bit, Wizard. I won't bore you guys to another, hour and a half long video, so don't comment down below, video is too long, haha. I know the video is too long. I'll make sure not to do that again on times when I don't have to. But if you guys want to know when I upload, the best way to know is by subscribing. But that does it for this video. Until next time, bye guys.